The next morning, you woke slowly from a comfortable dream, finding yourself safe and warm and tucked up in bed. With a small stretch, you opened your eyes to the sun shining in through the window. After waking up a little more and getting ready, you headed downstairs to find your family all gathered around the kitchen area. Good morning. You greeted them all, receiving a chorus of good mornings back in return. You nodded in acknowledgement as you headed into the kitchen to find some breakfast. A knock at the front door caught your attention, and curiosity pulled you to follow several steps behind Mom as you went to answer it. It's Mom! Cove was waiting there with both of his parents. Morning!
Hello!
Surprised at that sight, Mom paused a moment and then she pulled Kyra into a big hug. Meanwhile, you approached the doorway and flashed a small smile at Cove. Kyra, it's been too long. I know! Time's been flying. Kyra's gaze slid over to you. She waved.
Hey ya.
Hi there, Molly. Biting your bottom lip, you nodded slightly. Hello. I gotta hug her. You intended on it being brief, but she gave you a lasting squeeze. A small squeak escaped you, and then a chuckle. When you stepped back, there was no missing the merriment sparkling in her eyes. Enough of standing around out there. Come on in. Mom moved aside to usher the group in and guided them to the living room. Before anyone could get settled in, Mom spoke up. You're all welcome to stay for breakfast. We still have some great spices and stuff from the farmer's market.
Of course.
Yes, we'd be thrilled to host you. There were eager nods from Mr. Holden and Kyra, but Cove looked around the room filled with familiar faces before speaking up. Maybe instead of staying here, why don't we go to the beach? A scenic picnic, eh? Mr. Holden crossed his arms and contemplated that idea happily. Excited, Kyra clapped her hands together.
Yeah!
Oh! We could really make a day out of it. Might as well enjoy the ocean while we can. That sounds lovely, Cove. Everyone else put in their own agreement with Cove's suggestion. Before long, both families dispersed, getting everything ready. Sandwiches had to be made. Water, sunscreen, towels, and more needed to be gathered and packed. An hour later, both your family and Cove's were walking down the old path to the beach. The morning was already turning into a bright and beautiful day. You honestly couldn't ask for better weather for a beach trip. The moment you laid your eyes on the full view of the ocean, you stopped and stood there mesmerized. It didn't matter that you grew up there, the sight always filled you with wonder. Hey Molly.
So?
I was thinking about calling Terry and Miranda. See if they can come too. Everyone else is pretty much already here, so would your family mind? I can ask them. Already, you couldn't imagine any problems your moms could have with that idea. Cove matched the grin growing on your face. Let's just invite, like, everybody that we've ever seen. Gotta wrap this up. Wrap it up with everybody. You were eager to see your friends join the fun today. You made your way over to your mom's. I have a question. Would it be alright if Terry and Miranda came by? I don't see why not. Ma looked to Mom to see what she thought, and she nodded in agreement. Mom then shot a glance over at Mr. Holden and Kyra, knowing that they had likely heard everything.
You alright with that?
Cliff, Kyra, what do you two think? The more the merrier.
Okay.
Of course, they're welcome with me. Thanks. Delighted, you nodded and turned on your heels. Cove was still several feet away, talking to Lee and Liz, likely about the same topic. With a beaming smile, you gave him a thumbs up, and the two of them must have also approved, as Cove quickly got his phone out and started making the calls. At that, you turned your attention to helping with the picnic setup. You hurried over to your mom's and helped put the rest of the food out. In moments, you noticed Cove at your side. Turning to face him, your mouth pulled into a hopeful smile. You waited expectantly for what he had to say about the girls. They're gonna come. Really? Your whole demeanor brightened and your smile beamed.
Yeah.
They'll meet us here later today. Shouldn't be too long. I can't wait. Once the setup was done, everyone got comfortable and dug into the food. You couldn't remember the last time breakfast tasted this good, but you attributed it to the gorgeous ocean view and soothing sea breeze. Morning swiftly gave way to afternoon, and a very recognizable face came walking down to the shore. Baxter seemed momentarily surprised to see you all there. He pleasantly approached with a wave. All right, Baxter, just control yourself, okay? Just for me. Developments have happened. I need you to just be pleasant. And let's end this off with like a great, nice, beautiful bow. Alright?
Hello, folks.
That voice every time.
I didn't mean to intrude on the party. I was coming down to get some fresh air. Oh, you didn't intrude on anything. You're welcome to join us. We brought plenty of towels and food and sunscreen. Yeah, you're one of the neighbors. Kick back and relax with us.
Thank you.
Well, I can't possibly say no to that.
Baxter's gaze moved over to you and Cove. He smiled.
Molly, Cove, good to see you.
Hi. You waved from where you leisurely sat, and Cove nodded. We meet again.
Yes, lucky for me.
A few giggles escaped Lee as she watched Baxter. It was then that Baxter noticed the face he didn't immediately recognize from around the neighborhood. He turned up his charm even more for the introduction. Of course he did. Alright, Kyra, good luck.
Excuse me, I'm Baxter Ward. I'm sorry we haven't met before.
Well, I'm not typically from around this area. Just visiting. I'm Cove's mom.
Oh, I'll remember that. It's very nice to meet you.
I'm sure. After that, Baxter spent some time getting better acquainted with everyone, and Terry and Miranda arrived excitedly. The conversation shifted to what you all would do next.
In that case,
We could do a few rounds of volleyball. There's plenty of us now.
is that all right?
Could I play?
Of course.
Miranda brightened, delighted with this plan. Ma looked around to see if there were any other takers. I don't feel like playing. I'd have to change, but it'd be fun to watch.
I could be the ref. My eyes won't miss a thing. Volleyball's a good idea, but there should probably be something happening for those who aren't a fan.
Ooh! I have some crafting supplies we could use to make jewelry. We could even use stuff we find around the beach to accentuate them.
Really?
What, really? I want to make a necklace.
That'd be great.
I'd be interested in trying my hand at that too. I could do that. Nice.
Absolutely.
I was like, okay, good. Because I want to do crafting too, so I was going to be there, and Baxter's also going to be there.
Impromptu crafting is my kind of party. I'd like to join too, please.
I want to make jewelry too. Jewelry's fun. I'll make some jewelry. Already you were imagining various designs you could make depending on what Lee let you use. Your cousin shot you a thumbs up, clearly happy with your decision. Kyra got up from the table she was- the towel she was sitting on. She brushed some sand off her legs and then stretched her arms over her head.
Can do.
I'm up for a few rounds. Well, since there is still a free spot, I'll throw my hat in the ring. The things I do for family.
Thank you.
I'd love that.
Liz got up from where she was sitting, and you could tell by her expression that she was already determined to win. You laughed to yourself, curious now how that game would turn out. Now that plans were settled, the group temporarily split into two.
Okay.
Let me pop back to the house to get my supplies.
Anything we can do while you're gone?
Yes, you can start clearing out the towels for us to work at. And if you want, look around for good stuff to use.
I'm on it.
Roger that! While Lee ran back to the house, the group did just as she suggested. Just as she suggested. By the time she returned, everyone had their craft area ready to work at. Lee sat down on one of the towels and looked up at everyone eagerly. She held up two necklace options. I hope you've all been thinking about what you want to make. I have for everyone a choice of either a chain or a threaded rope.
How do I pick? All I know is that I want to put some sea glass chunks on it.
Charming.
That is a charming idea.
His gaze went back and forth between Lee's two necklace base options. You could tell he was thinking quite hard about it.
I can't decide anything for mine.
No rush. I'll leave the strands here and you can decorate it however you want later.
I suppose I'll use whatever I spot around the beach first. Fate can decide. I think I'll keep it classic and only worry about finding a decent shell.
Yeah!
I'm planning on doing shells too. Yeah, shells for sure. I'm gonna hunt for a handful of shells to pick from. That sounds like a good plan. Just a bit, Lee's eyes narrowed. You could see a playful, teasing look surfacing. If you find anything really good, I hope you'll be willing to share. Your mouth pulled into a wide smile as you watched her carefully. It was hard not to laugh. You'd see about that one. Cove crossed his arms and chewed at the inside of his cheek. You weren't the only one that noticed.
What's wrong, Cove? I'm not sure what to use. I mean, ideally I'd want a shark tooth, but what are the chances I would even find one?
Mom smiled. You both looked at him sympathetically.
Sorry.
The rare downside of not having a shark-filled coast, that would make for a really nice necklace, though.
I know.
At Cove's pouting, Mom gave him a little bump on the shoulder with her fist.
Well, don't lose all hope. You never know, you might end up really lucky.
Cove laughed. It cheered him up, even though he wasn't really convinced. After that, the little crafting club busily went to work on their pieces. Whatever they decided on using was attached in loops that were then slid onto their necklace face. Terry was immensely proud of herself when she was done. Hers was simple, but gorgeous because of the striking piece of sea glass she painstakingly searched for and found. Baxter excitedly showed his finished piece off to everyone. He stayed true to his word and used various materials he found along the beach. The necklace looked like it had good weight from the clutter. He always had an eclectic style, it seemed. Cove ended up using driftwood of varying lengths to design his necklace. Despite not finding any shark teeth, he still looked pretty pleased. Mom decided on a medium-sized purple ringed top shell as the centerpiece of hers, and Lee went with a few small Simnia shells. They both put their necklaces on soon after finishing them. After combing the beach several times, you found just what you were looking for. It took a bit, but you managed to make a necklace you were satisfied with. It mostly had shells. Your group of crafters would also cheer for the volleyball players whenever shouts could be heard coming out of the court. On top of that, you all would hold up each newly made piece in the air and the players would take a breather to applaud the creation. You really enjoyed searching the beach, trading supplies, and watching everyone make their necklaces. The crafting club was definitely a success, and you weren't the only one that had a blast. The afternoon continued to drift by, but the fun was still going strong. Occasionally, someone would head back to the houses to use the bathroom, rest away from the sun a while, or to retrieve something that they needed, but they always came back. The beach was never empty, and there was always a new conversation to take part in or another game to join. At one point, Mr. Holden even broke out his pack of cards. He roped the whole group into a few rounds of good old Go Fish. There was only one thing that could bring this beach day to an end, and that was for the day itself to end. Before anyone realized it, the sun began to set over the sea. As that happened, you were taking a break, sitting on a towel with your legs stretched out past it and your feet buried in the warm sand. Shortly, you looked up to see your moms approaching. They stopped in front of you and you smiled.
Hey there, kiddo.
How are you?
Good. They both sat down, squishing you between them. Ma leaned her head against yours and Mom started rubbing your back soothingly. Nothing more was said at first, but Ma sighed contentedly. Mom looked at you wistfully.
We're both really proud of you, Molly.
True.
You grew up to be more than we ever could have hoped.
Thank you. You were touched by their words, and your voice came out in a whisper. Mom chuckled and lightly brushed a bit of your hair.
Thank you.
That's not something you need to thank us for.
But still, I wouldn't be here without either of you. Ma wrapped an arm around your middle and squeezed you tightly in a side hug. Glancing at Mom, you saw how teary-eyed she became. She sniffled. You stayed there quietly and contently, watching the sun set with your parents for a while. Until Mr. Holden called out to you. He was still walking in your direction.
We were talking and think we're gonna take a walk down the shore. Any of you want to come?
Automatically, you looked to your moms for what they were thinking. Mom glanced from you to Ma and smiled.
That sounds good to me.
That's fantastic.
Yes, that'd be very nice. My legs need some stretching.
Grinning, you looked back at Mr. Holden. You gave him a nod. Thrilled, Mr. Holden threw out a thumbs up and began heading back the way he came in a light jog.
Hey, don't leave us in the dust!
Cliff kept going forward, but flipped around, walking backwards across the sand so he could face you again.
No worries.
We wouldn't leave without you. All right, we'll catch up. Ready to go?
Uh-huh. Both of your moms held a hand out to you. Chuckling, you gave them each one, and you all strolled back to the rest of the group. When Liz was in reach, Ma used her free hand to pull her into it too. Liz shook her head, but her mouth quirked into a smirk, and she didn't resist. Together as a family, you followed behind the others, hand in hand. Your feet squished into the wet sand as the waves rolled over them, and you didn't have a single care in the world as more and more stars began to dot the sky. Once the sun had long been out of sight, it was finally time to pack up. The closing of the day and the ever-approaching end of summer seemed to intertwine. It caused a quiet, reflective mood to blanket over the group. On the beach, Terry and Miranda took turns compressing Cove in a hug before moving on to do the same to you. You chuckled, still overjoyed that you got to see them today.
I'm sorry we have to go already. My parents are here.
That's okay. But still, I wish we could help clear this all up.
Don't worry about it. Just... thanks for coming out today. It was cool having everyone here.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I'm super glad we came. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Did either of us tell our friends that we're dating now, or did we forget?
Nodding, you turned your attention to Terry. She wore a large grin on her face and held a hand out for a low five. You obliged.
See you later.
Take care of yourselves, buddies!
After that, they walked away, waving to you and Cove as they went down the shore. Cove waved quietly back with a small smile on his face. Bye! You cupped your hands around your mouth to project the word louder. They both waved faster.
Bye!
Have a good night! Taking you by surprise, Terry jumped and twisted around. She kept up with Miranda by walking backwards. She kept the mood of your farewell light by shooting finger guns at you and Cove. Miranda bumped her with a hip. It left everyone with a laugh just before they disappeared down the bend.
Molly?
Come on.
Hey, Cove, could you come here?
Both of your parents were motioning for you. The two of you went to them. Tons of things ended up at the beach over the course of the day, so there was still so much to pack up and the parents needed help. With a nod, you got to it, stuffing various things into bags and bundling them up in towels. Once things were ready to go, everyone filled their arms with as much as they could carry. Absolutely no one wanted this to be a back and forth kind of task. The walk back home ended up being mostly quiet. Each person seemed to be feeling the effects of the day. A cool breeze carried you across the sand and onto the road. There was a sigh of relief from what felt like the group as a whole when they arrived back to the neighborhood. Baxter carefully placed what he had been carrying on the ground.
Thank you so much for helping with that.
Thanks.
No, thank you for allowing me to join today. You all shared with me. Helping to carry it back is the least I can do.
Ma nodded, and the others started collecting their things from his pile. Baxter, meanwhile, stepped over to you and Cove.
It really was a pleasure getting to know you both this summer.
His head tilted towards you, and he smiled warmly. Baxter offered you his hand. Side-hugging him is wild. We spent like one day with him. Yep. I will shake your hand, buddy. It was tough with what you were carrying, but you were able to extend one of your hands a bit. Baxter chuckled and shook it. I really enjoyed meeting you.
Glad to hear it.
I enjoyed this vacation immensely, thanks to you.
Baxter turned to shake Cove's hand this time. He was a little incredulous for a moment, but then Cove eventually shifted what he was carrying and took Baxter's hand. It wasn't long, but it was a solid handshake. Baxter was clearly pleased. And now Cove can relax.
I wish we had more time together, but it was still a nice ride while it lasted. Would happily do it all over again.
Bye, Baxter.
Yeah, bye.
Baxter nodded and walked a few steps towards his condo. He then stopped and waved.
Goodbye.
Till next time. Baxter sauntered away completely, and disappeared inside the condo to return to his own things, his time with you and your family and friends ending. He paused for a moment, staring at where he went. But afterwards, he looked back over at the rest of the group. Lee and Liz were just going inside your house. You couldn't spot Kyra or Mr. Holden anywhere, but the door to their house was wide open. Mom approached you with an amused look on her face.
Seems like you're holding up some Holden things.
Surprised, you glanced down to take a quick inventory of what you were holding. Mom was right, some of it belonged to the neighbors.
Would you mind dropping it off now?
Fatigue was starting to sink in, and he looked again at everything you were carrying, but you nodded. I can do it.
Thank you.
Cove took a few steps towards his house and stopped, waiting for you.
Good night.
Good night, Cove. I'll see you inside, Molly. Night.
You caught up to Cove, and together you went over to his house. Walking in the front door, you saw Kyra and Mr. Holden busily unpacking already. Things were scattered on counters, and they were moving around each other, putting the items away. They both lifted their heads when Cove closed the front door.
Hey!
It's nice seeing you again already, Molly. Her teasing tone brought a light smile to your face. You hefted the stuff in your arms a little closer. I ended up with things of yours from the beach.
Oh,
Thanks for getting that to us. You can put it, here on that coffee table.
Mr. Holden pointed at the surface he was referring to, and you immediately left what didn't belong to your family there. Cove put his own things down on the floor, just at his just at his feet. Why did I see wet there? Just at his feet. I'm like, wet feet? At his feet, wading through everything strewn about to reach his parents. Putting your family stuff on the ground for a moment, you dusted your hands off and straightened up. You needed a second of rest and a minute to resituate it all. I think that's how you say that, resituate? You went over to where the others were too. Kyra opened her arms wide, wanting to hug you. Thanks? No. You shyly averted your eyes for a moment. Kyra smiled understandingly. Then you stepped forward and let her pull you into a hug. She hugged you tightly so you could feel every bit of how much she was happy to know you. You felt cared about. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. It was a blast. I thought so too. Kyra eventually released you, but patted the tops of your shoulders as a final gesture.
Thank you.
Every time I've gotten to come by, it's been an absolute joy. Things really couldn't have worked out better. Mr. Holden took a step closer to you. Kyra moved aside to let him say goodbye too. He grinned.
Thanks for always being such a friendly neighbor. And not just right now, but for as long as I've known you. I didn't always make it easy, but you and your family are good people. I really, truly appreciate it.
thanks very much.
At that, Mr. Holden reached over and gave you a soft pat on the top of your head. I'm gonna give you a hug. Before either of you could process it, you had him locked in a hug. His body automatically went rigid, and you felt a pang of embarrassment. I see where Cove gets this from. But before you could let go, he relaxed and began to lightly pat your back before shifting into a full hug. Thank you. As you let go, he sniffled. Stop. But when he met your gaze once more, his mouth pulled into a wide, happy grin. Mr. Holden was staring at you, but his gaze seemed far away. Maybe he was looking back at who you used to be, the 8-year-old he had asked to be his son's new friend.
See you.
Bye, Molly.
You smiled softly. Then Cove took a step forward. He gestured to his pile of things he had carried into the house.
Don't worry about it.
I'll put stuff away in a few minutes.
Right. I need to go do the same with my family.
I figured.
Cove walked you to the door and held it open. Taking one last check around to make sure you had all your things to bring home, you went into the road. He leaned his body against the doorframe, not following you out.
So, this is it, huh? Actually, that's not what I mean.
His expression twisted and he shook his head a bit, like he was trying to banish the pensive thoughts.
Bye.
I'll just say bye.
Bye. The word came out in a whisper, and your lips pulled into a bittersweet smile. Everything felt too final for your liking. Cove reached forward and gently cupped your face with one hand. His thumb trailed across your cheek for several heartbeats. Mesmerized by his blue eyes, you stepped forward, delighted to oblige the request he was silently asking. Ah, yay! I was gonna say, I feel like nothing really changed today, but this is it. This is it. He met you halfway as you smiled into the kiss. It was soft with longing, and your chest ached knowing that there couldn't be anything more than this, at least for now. One of his hands grabbed onto the door handle and firmly held it. He was stopping himself from coming along with you. I feel that. That was me last night with the phone. I'm like, I'm not gonna go over there. I'm not gonna ask him to come. I'm just gonna chill out. As he walked over to your own front door, you stopped. Turning around, you spotted Cove right where you left him. You laughed quietly to yourself. For a small pause, you both stared at each other from across the street. Yes. Cove reached out like he was catching it off to the side, and then he curled his fist to his chest, holding the kiss close. Your lips curled into a beaming smile. He played along with it! I'm so pleased he wasn't embarrassed. Things couldn't be dragged out any longer. After one more shared smile, you opened the door and went inside, shutting it behind you. A few steps in, you saw your family gathered in the living room. They were still busy unpacking and cleaning. You added the things you brought to the pile on the kitchen counter. Mom stood up, rubbing her eyes a bit. She yawned loudly.
Oh, I'm bushed. How about we finish the rest of the chores tomorrow?
Yes, honestly, it's too late for this.
Thanks.
Please and thank you. Ma put her hands on her hips and turned to assess the room. Ma was not one who liked to leave a mess about. But she sighed.
All right.
I suppose we can make an exception to the usual rule. It has been a really long day.
Liz grinned contentedly. Lee wasted no time in skipping over to you and hooked you into a side hug. Good night. I hope you had the loveliest of dreams. Of you-know-who. Lee ended that sentence with a wink and a hearty laugh. She let you go. I'll hug you back, you stinker. You pulled her close and into a bear hug. Lee giggled until you released her. I hope you sleep well, too. Oh, I totally will. The moment my head hits the pillow, I'll be out. Here's to us, Molly. Tonight, tomorrow, and forever. Yeah, family forever. Lee leaned in close to whisper in your ear. You didn't fail to catch the teasing look on her face. Aww. Exactly. There's no escape. That got a laugh out of you. You lightly pushed her shoulder. Lee stretched her arms high over her head. She yawned loudly and looked at you with tired eyes. I think that's my cue to head to bed. Bye. I think so too. Have fun sharing the room with Liz. She laughed at that, and Lee shuffled off towards the guest bedroom. Before you had a chance to do anything else, you could feel the top of your head being tapped. You spun around to see Liz smirking. Nighty-night. I'm heading to bed too. It's been a long day, and I have a lot to prepare for tomorrow. Exhaling, you automatically started fixing the back of your hair. When Liz didn't immediately walk away, you smiled softly at her. Everything okay? Her gaze moved away, and you knew she had more to say. You waited patiently for Liz to compose her thoughts. It's been a good summer. It was nice to come back home. You nodded, and Liz gave you a teasing nudge as she went by. Amused, you turned and watched her go. Love you, baby sister. I love you too. Give her a hug. You wrapped your arms around her back to hug her from behind. She laughed and patted your hands. Eventually, you let Liz go from your grasp. When Liz was out of sight, Mom started up the next conversation over her shoulder. We're just like hugging everybody goodbye. Like, what's happening? It really does feel so final.
Aren't you heading up to bed too?
I want to relax first. Desperately, you needed some time to decompress and clear your mind. You worried if you went off to bed now that you would end up staring at the ceiling all night.
Okay.
Ma came over too, smiling understandingly. She pulled you into a big hug.
Love you.
All right, you do what you need to.
When you were done hugging Mom pulled you into another hug. Their actions, basically handing you off to the other, had you laughing jovially.
I love you.
I love you too.
Aww.
They both couldn't resist taking turns hugging you again. Your smile widened. It felt good to be so loved.
Good night, kiddo. Sleep tight. Good night, sweetie.
Night. After that, your moms headed off towards their bedroom down the hall. You were about to turn the other direction when you heard Mom's voice.
And don't let the bedbugs bite.
You heard Ma chuckling as you watched them go with a smile. Time had passed, but you weren't entirely sure how much. Sighing, you sat up on the couch. It was a good rest, and all of your tired muscles felt quite relaxed. You got up, planning on going to bed, when something out the window caught your eye. Your feet brought you right in front of the large windows spanning the length of the back wall. You stared out into the hills behind your house. As if on cue, your phone came on, alerting you of a new notification. It was Cove.
Wanna hang out on the hill tonight?
Of course. Something inside told you that this was the right kind of night to take a trip out there. You sent him back a very quick message. Yeah. Heart. Aw, stop. You went over to the front door, and stepping over the threshold, you gave the living room one last glance over your shoulder. Then you shut the door behind you. Silently, you made your way to the Poppy Hill. With light steps in the dark, you walked across the hills behind your house. Up ahead at the very top, silhouetted beneath the night sky, was a familiar figure already waiting there. Smiling, you wondered just how he always got there first. You even had the advantage of living closer. It's his long legs. Then again, and maybe it was only in your mind, but somehow Cove was intrinsically linked with this place. After all these years, it would be weird to scan this horizon and not find him there, as surreal as the shore without the sea. The distance between you was growing shorter by the second. Hearing the grass and earth crunch under your feet, Cove turned. A grin spread over his face as he saw you. You took your place standing behind him on the crest of the Poppy Hill, looking out over the ocean. Same as you'd done on countless times since he'd first arrived, when you'd found him on this very same spot.
Molly.
He had officially broken the silence, the spell that had held you both in place. You looked at him expectantly.
There's something I've always kind of wondered about.
He cocked his head, giving you a sidelong glance.
What did you think about when we met? I was just a kid you'd never seen before, bawling his eyes out on the hill next to your house.
He chuckled, his eyes drifting towards the sea beyond before flicking back to you. The way his gaze pulled back to you made it clear that he was genuinely invested in the topic. Luckily for him, you remembered what initially struck you in that moment. It was as if it had only happened yesterday. Well, I remember noticing your very bright green hair. It's true, I remember picking that choice. Cove burst into genuine laughter at your reply.
I guess that's fair. It did kind of stand out.
Sighing a bit, you continued to reminisce about that first meeting. I also remember feeling bad about what was happening.
I remember that too.
He ran a hand through his hair, and you knew his line of questioning wasn't at an end even before he spoke again.
I mean...
Do you remember what you thought about me? You know, as a person. Was I annoying, or mean, or...
I thought you were cute right away. Either this one or this one. Yeah, probably this one. I was just worried about you because you were so sad. His eyes widened dolefully, and he hung his head like a guilty puppy.
I'm sorry.
No, Oh no, it's not your fault, man. I was just like, oh no, this poor boy.
I'm sorry for upsetting you.
Cove's hand drifted to the scar on his arm, his fingers unconsciously gliding over the mark. It was much less noticeable than it had been when the neon pink cast had first come off, shrunken gradually over the years as his body healed, then dwarfed in comparison to his growing body. Still, his fingers came back to it without thinking. He gave a half smile, not meeting your eyes.
I feel bad now. The thoughts I had were... Well, considering what you were thinking, I come across as a lot worse of a kid.
You didn't like me?
No.
It definitely wasn't that.
Cove lifted his head up, finally committing to meet your eyes fully once more.
I remember you that day. I remember it really well. I don't think I'd ever be able to forget. I can picture the way you looked back then when I first saw you standing right here. I still know the expression on your face when you chose to sit with me in the grass.
He chuckled self-derisively, interrupting his own monologue.
You scared me at first. I figured I'd be alone out there until I had to face my dad again, and then suddenly another kid appeared out of nowhere. It was startling, but I got over that fast. You were a strange person in a strange place, but in that moment, you were exactly what I needed. Somebody I could talk to freely about what was happening and how it made me feel. And you listened to me. You stayed with me.
He sighed, then bit his lip as he gave a small smile.
I was a little bit spoiled growing up.
He looked off again, seeking clarity for his thoughts in the expanse of the night sky.
What I'm trying to say is, when I was younger, I viewed myself basically as the center of the universe. I didn't even imagine it wasn't like that.
I mean...
Things didn't simply happen. That would be weird, according to my little kid brain. It made far more sense that everything in my life had a specific connection to me somehow. Right?
He sought affirmation in you, wavy brows wavy brows raised. Wavy brows raised as he tried to explain his childlike logic.
So at the time, you felt almost unreal. Like you weren't just anyone. Some other kid who happened to live in that neighborhood with your own whole life that wasn't connected to Cove Holden. No, to me, you were there so that you could find me when I was lost. Though, it turns out you were there for that. You were trying to find me because something had sent you specifically to do that. I just didn't expect it to be my dad. I guess he knew more about what I needed than I thought.
He chuckled, shaking his head as he shook off the thought.
I kind of expected it all to vanish like a dream when that night was over. I would wake up and everything would be the same again.
That's...
I'd be back in my bed at home, my real home, with both my parents. The future was something I couldn't picture anymore. I didn't know what school would be like when I went back, or the table where I'd eat breakfast the next morning, or anything. And if I couldn't imagine it, how could I think it was something actually happening? I couldn't grasp my new reality. It was too big for me to hold all at once. So I never thought I'd see you again.
Then Cove beamed at you, his eyes shining bright.
And I never ever would have been able to guess that 10 years later, when I was a grown-up, the two of us would still be together.
It's hard to believe it's been so long.
Yeah.
But the smile faded from his face as his eyebrows drew together.
That was the worst day of my life at the time. The day my family broke apart. It was too heavy for me to even think about. I felt that way for I don't know how long.
He held a hand over his heart, connecting with the pain he'd felt as a child, and looked at you earnestly.
It's okay.
But that was never really true. Things have only gotten better with me, and with Dad and Mom. It was the change we all needed.
His eyes were growing misty.
So, when I remember that time right now, it's not the point that my life was over. It was only the moment that I met the woman I was going to be with.
Oh, stop. My heart.
When I was crying to a stranger over what I thought I'd lost, I didn't have any idea that she would be the one thing in the world that I actually wouldn't be able to live without.
I don't even know what to say. I feel like I need to say something, though, to that. Like, ah. Thank you for all of this.
No, thank you.
Yep. Yep. He leaned into the kiss, his lips soft against yours. Cove sighed contently. His voice was as delicate as the petals on the poppies which crowned this hill.
Hey Molly. I'm so grateful you always took care of me.
He didn't even know what to say back to that. His heartfelt appreciation left you speechless. He tilted his head up, thoughts lost in the sparse clouds above.
I wonder how late it is. I guess it doesn't really matter. My dad is fine with me being out whenever.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm vibing in this moment right now. I don't even care. What is time? What is space? Where are we right now? Who are we? Mr. Holden was content giving Cove all the freedom he could. Are you going to lay in the grass now?
Wow, how'd you know?
I just thought you might want to. I may have gotten to know you over the last 10 years. With a chuckle, Cove plopped down onto the ground and laid on his back, his usual way of spending time there. Let's just sit on his chest all the time. Yep. You lowered yourself against Cove's side in the grass and wrapped an arm over his chest. Cove smiled at you and used his free hand to cradle your face. Whoa, the sun actually came up. Okay, we were out. Man, we are gonna be so tired. The both of you fully settled in to relax on the hill. It felt like just the beginning of one of your nightly outings, but then you realized the sun was peeking out over the horizon. Cove spoke up with a disbelieving tone.
Huh.
It really was late.
Your neighbor wasn't a stranger to being awake at dawn, however, not like this. He was normally an early sleeper, early riser. This unexpected sunrise particularly awed him. The two of you watched on silently as the sun began to light the world. Cove then propped himself up on the backs of his arms and looked at you with a soft expression on his face.
Do you want to go back home? I could carry you if you're too tired.
You shook your head. You couldn't resist a yawn, but you were serious. It couldn't be time to go already. Cove chuckled affectionately and gripped you a little more.
I get it.
Okay, but it's been a long day. We've done a lot of things. Like, really a lot. It has to end sometime.
I know, you're right.
Yeah, too bad I am on that one, huh? But we can stay if you want to.
Cove smiled brightly at you, as warm as the new rays of sun that were tickling your skin. In that moment, you couldn't have appreciated him being there more. I gotta make up for the last 10 years, alright? Don't judge me. You moved your face forward and gave Cove a small kiss. He tilted his head against yours. You're my favorite neighbor. Good morning, Cove. He gave you a bent smile and went for the opposite sentiment.
Good night.
So contrary. The two of you remained together on that familiar poppy hill where you first met until the world began to fade and blur. You were falling asleep. A few more gentle words drifted into your consciousness.
See you tomorrow.
Your eyelids dipped, but you felt good. You were safe and relaxed. Everything that had come before this had reassured you of that. You were confident that when you opened them again, things would be okay. You opened your eyes. Instead of the walls of your room, you were surrounded by open sky. It was not soft pillows and sheets underneath you, but the bed of earth and grass that you'd taken last night. The day welcomed you with a shining sun, a refreshing breeze, and the chirping song of birds. You cupped your face with your hands as you sat up, feeling the imprint of the blades of grass leaving lines into your cheeks.
Molly.
Hearing your name, you lowered your hands and looked around. There he was, your most influential neighbor, Cove Holden. Hi there. What are you up to? He had made himself very comfortable, laying on his stomach with jewelry and shoes taken off and a flower in his hand.
Good morning.
Morning. Cove laughed, tickled with the overall situation and simply being able to spend time like this.
Told you I'd see you tomorrow.
Alright, good for you. It's the exact same day, Cove. We were up until dawn. It doesn't make it a new day now just because we went to sleep later than normal.
Then we disagree, because to me it's not really the next day until I've been to bed and woken up. But fine, I'll just have to make sure I see you tomorrow again. Probably the day after that too, that way there's no argument.
Cove turned his head up to the sky, his expression content.
Looks like it's gonna be a nice day. We'll have to come up with something to do to make the most of it.
He trailed off, blinking slowly in the sunlight.
Someday, when we're even older than we are now, I wonder what we'll end up remembering this moment for. What will we feel when we look back at it? Will it be the same as what we're feeling right now?
It's nice.
I can't see what the future is gonna look like again, but I think that's alright.
I think it'll mark another new start for me. Cove's eyebrows lifted as he turned to look at you.
That's a good one. I want to think about it like that too.
He eyed the hills sprawling out before you and down below where the wild hill and nature gave way to civilization. Your home and Cove's lay down at the bottom, neatly filed among the other houses in the neighborhood. Cove said nothing but fixed you with a deliberate and meaningful look.
As much as I like it here, it's okay if we leave now. We can always come back to see the poppies and the fireflies again, right?
Cove met your eyes, waiting for what you were going to say in response. You're not getting out of it. Right. I'd like that. Ah, he blushed. Cove blinked slowly, his eyes still locked on you, but you didn't need to see his face to know that he adored you. If there had been any room for doubt, the tender way he spoke would have filled it up.
You're really irreplaceable, huh?
Cove beamed at you. His expression was so unlike the one he'd worn when you first found him here, swaddled in sadness and uncertainty. Gosh, it's true. Yet you couldn't help but glimpse that boy once more underneath his bright expression and matured features.
Come on.
He offered you a hand. You accepted it, your palm fitting around his. Cove lifted himself up, pulling you along too.
Our parents probably aren't gonna come running for us this time. We've got to make our own call. And I say that we can't hide away forever. Poppy Hill is just one part of things. There's more out there for us than this time and this place alone. Let's enjoy it.
You couldn't say whether you were the one that broke into a run, if Cove had been the one to start it, or if your feet had simultaneously made that choice for you both. The end result was the same, with the two of you dashing down the hill like children, but with a nostalgic revelry that could only come as an adult. As the wind whipped past you, you knew that family and friends were waiting at the end of your sprint. There were more memories to make after all. Our life reached the end of the game! Oi! Life takes another step forward. Ah! Oh, we did it! That was so cute. That was so freaking cute. It was so sweet. The cavities. I'm drowning in the cavities. Whew. But we're not done. Don't worry, we're not done. We're not just gonna end it with like, and they finally admitted to wanting to date. Don't worry. There's gonna be a step 4. There's gonna be a step 4. We're gonna get there. That is so neat that they actually put Wave Rider for the voice acting. That's so cute. I love that. Oh, that's fun. That's a lot of fun. There's a whole bunch of characters I haven't even met yet. Goodness graciousness. That's a good song. I'm not gonna lie, like when Cove was like hesitating outside the diner, I thought that it was all over. I'm like, oh no, I didn't win his affection enough, and then I should have said something all those other times. I've really shaboinged myself, and and then he got his confidence up. Oh man. And then they've been like goobers, even more goobery goobers since. So good. So good. Honestly. I'm grinning like an idiot. Is what I'm doing. Ugh. Guys, I'm so happy. I can't even tell you how happy I am. Look at all these supporters. Good job, everybody, bringing this together. What a game. Man. Truly something special. I can't wait to see what else is gonna happen. Because we're not done. I got other stuff. Daddy Phantom is an amazing name. Who is that person? Well done on that. I'm reading these names and all of a sudden I'm like, Daddy Phantom, hello? That's so good. I'm sorry. I should probably be talking and like talking about all the things I loved and how absolutely adorable. But I'm just like, my brain is just fluffy cotton candy, just pink cotton candy with rainbows and unicorns and stuff. I'm just like, so good. I was so thrilled. I'm just vibing in my little happy circle. That's all I'm doing. Thank you for playing. Thank you for a delightful game. So cute. Here we go. In between. There we go. All right. We're gonna move on to our next step next time. And I don't know what age we're gonna be, but I'm probably just gonna continue to look like this, honestly. I don't think anything's gonna change. Our life will change, but my face will not. It'll just look the same. And then we'll see where the game takes us. Hope you guys enjoyed the end of step 3. See you for step 4.